feel I need to speak about the difference between being alone and being lonely. And I'm going to start out with an old TV sitcom to give you an idea of what I'm going to talk about. On Good Times, I think it was in the first or second season, Florida, James was still in the picture. And of course, of those of you who watch Good Times, you know about Willona. Good friends with Florida, known Florida and James for a long time. She was the Rona Barrett of the project, so to speak, because she was nosy and knew everything. Well, there was an episode where Florida decided she was going to play matchmaker because she felt Willona needed to have somebody because Willona lived alone. Well, that's a situation that kind of backfired on Florida because eventually she did match her up with someone, one of James's friends, and they got along fine. But at the end of the day, Willona went back to her and told her, she said, he and I decided we're going to be friends, but we're not going to go any further than that. We're not going to get married or anything like that because I'm not ready. And Florida couldn't comprehend the fact that Willona was willing to be alone. And I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why some people are alone, and it's a good thing. Some of you are brainwashed to believe that if you are alone for a split second, that something's wrong with you. We've had some societies, traditions, religions built on the fact that being alone was a horrible thing. But I'm going to tell you something. When it comes to peace of mind, it's not a horrible thing. When you are lonely, that involves negative energy. That means you desire the companionship of someone, you feel incomplete, you have self-defeating feelings, your energy is negative, you're not productive. It's affecting you in a negative way. You're lonely. You want companionship. And sometimes, if you're lonely and have toxic traits, you might wind up getting someone who is not good for you because you're afraid to be alone. We have to accept the fact that there are going to be times in our life where it's going to be nobody but us and our Creator, and we're going to have to accept that. Yeah, I know. Some of you are going to say, well, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Sometimes you've got to prepare yourself mentally because that bridge might be something that happens tomorrow. What are you going to do? You might be in a situation where you're going to be alone and you're going to have to be by yourself with yourself. And sometimes the Creator does that for a reason, because maybe the Creator's been trying to speak to you about certain things you need to deal with in yourself, but because you always had people around, you never took care of them. See, we all have a purpose in this world. And whether we choose to tap into it or not, it's a gift that's given to us by the Creator. And if the Creator wants you to exercise your gift, sometimes the Creator will move stuff out of the way. That includes people, places, and things in order to get the point across. Some of you have had no choice but to be alone due to a legal situation. You might be incarcerated or institutionalized. And that's probably the only way that the Creator could speak to you in regards to your purpose and put you in check, straighten you out. So being alone is not a bad thing sometimes. That could be the only way that you could get the blessing that you need. Sometimes that's the only way that you can focus your energy on what you should have been focusing on and become the person that you needed to be without distraction. There's a disorder called dependence personality disorder, and it's real, people. It's real. I've come across a lot of people, especially women in my age group. For some of them, there are two different types of middle-aged women that I've come across. One of the ones that are okay where they're at, mistakes made and all. They accepted themselves. But then you have this other group of people that they have gone in the other direction where they feel that they've got to have folks around them all the time. And they make themselves available to people no matter how toxic these people are, no matter how much they use them, no matter how much they abuse them, because they feel that's the only way that they can be relevant. Self-esteem is low. And for whatever reason, they're scared to death of being by themselves. So they wind up attracting people that demand a lot of attention. And then when they get with them, they'll get on board for a while and cater to them. But then after a while, they start to get tired, and all of a sudden, it's a complaint and it's other person's fault. No, you made yourself too available to someone who demanded too much, and you knew they demanded too much when you got with them. By that time, you're trapped. You're worn down. You don't know what to do. You know you can be by yourself for a while and breathe, but you're so afraid of it because some of you have probably never been alone in your life. There's peacefulness sometimes in being alone, especially if you survived a chaotic situation. Sometimes you need to regroup and recharge, and the only way that you can do that is to be by yourself so you can receive the spiritual downloads that you need. Receive the messages so you can start fresh and start anew. That's the only way. So people who are lonely, that's leading to a toxic situation. But people who are alone, first of all, they're not worried about whether or not somebody's going to come along. Because when we're all going through this thing called life and you have a heartbeat, someone else is going to come along eventually. Someone else is going to come along. It is what it is. So why are you worried about when the next person is going to come along? Why are you worried? In the meantime, take the time that you have alone to work on the things that you needed to work on but didn't have the energy or the time to work on because somebody else is in the picture. Level up a little bit. Regroup. Relocate if you have to. Change jobs if you have to. Those things that you put off doing because you were involved with the wrong person at the wrong time, this is your chance to take care of them. And you could do it in peace. You don't have to wait on anybody to tell you anything. You don't have to wait on anybody to make time or chip in or chime in or whatever the case may be. You're on your own clock until the next person comes along. Because as I stated before, you have a human existence here and somebody else always comes along. Take this time to pull it together and reconnect with your higher power. That way, you'll be more centered, more grounded, and by the time the next person comes along, that might be the one. That might be the person that you should have had, but you weren't prepared for before. Kissing frogs before getting the prince, you know? So please, don't get into this mode where you feel you got to have somebody back to back to back to back to back. Been there, done that. Life was in constant chaos, constantly tired, constantly confused. Be thankful. Use this time to the best of your ability. And don't worry about it. This is a big planet, got over 7 billion people on it. Somebody else will come along. And especially if you're trying to nurse a bad breakup. Don't be in such a hurry. It's going to be okay. But anyway, that's the difference between being alone and being lonely. And as Walona told Florida on Good Times, she said, just because I'm alone does not mean that I'm lonely. Walona was living on her own clock.